Good morning. Welcome to the Daily Drive with Dave. Let's see, what can I talk about today? Content is such a problem to come up with. Today I'm just going to ramble a little bit about the anatomy of a website. So, website. So you go to a website.com, and you get a web page back, and you do various things. You look up stuff, you shop, you get information, you look at pictures, whatever. So what's going on behind the scenes there? What components are in that website? Well, right at the front, I guess, is web hosting. That website has files, scripting files and image files and, various files that make up the website, and they have to be stored somewhere for retrieval by your web browser. So they're stored on a server somewhere, and that server is running software that stores, manages those files, and responds to requests to get pages from the website. And that server and software package is commonly called your web host. And usually it's some server, who knows where, Utah or something. It's usually web hosting that you rent from somebody else. You could actually run your own web server in your house. But I'm not going to get overly technical. We're going to get fairly technical. So you have your web host. And what happens is you go to your browser. We're going to be scattered a little bit. And like I said, I'm rambling because I don't have a structured hierarchy of the different components, but we're going to touch on most of all of the components involved. So you got your web server, your web host with your website on it. And somebody sees your website, grabs a web page from their web browser. Well, how does that happen? Well, that brings up another component of your website, is your domain name. So say you're going to awebsite.com. Well, awebsite.com is the domain name. The domain name is kind of like a name in a phone book. Because the web browser, you type in awebsite.com. Well, the web server or the web host that actually has your website is located in a specific geographic location connected to the internet, and it has a specific unique IP address. It's kind of like a phone number. You want to call me? You call me on the phone. You type my phone number in. But, it'd be easier to go to your contacts list in your phone and look up Dave. And then you push that, and the phone knows what my phone number is. Well, it's kind of the same thing with a domain name. You type in awebsite.com, your web browser sends this request out to the internet, and it goes to a phone book, which is a DNS server, they call it, domain name service server. And that server says, awebsite.com? Well, that's located at the IP address, 102.304.506.789. I don't know. And so the website says, okay, well, route these packets over to that server. So you have your web host and you have your domain name. Now the browser sends a request, give me a web page, and the server very simply says, you want this web page? Okay, let me kind of build it for you. The server actually builds the web page for you and sends it back to you to display in your browser. Now, how does it build it? Well, it involves some other components. I'm just going to go with standard old school basic stuff. A web page, very basically, is HTML markup. I think it's hypertext markup language or something like that. You better double check me on that. But that is the most basic World Wide Web scripting. It's a way of returning text and returning images with some simple formatting and a way of providing clickable links so that you could, from that web page, click a link and go to another web page. So we have HTML scripting. Now, these days there are some very popular scripts that kind of shell around the HTML. For example, PHP is a very popular one. Microsoft has their ASP.NET. I'm kind of leaning towards and favoring PHP because it's open source. It's not proprietary to one company. It's a communal system. So you have HTML, you have PHP. That's scripting that also runs on the web server, and it can do fancier stuff than HTML. PHP can return to you HTML stuff plus more extra stuff. It can return data that's live, up-to-date data. It can return, Flash movies. Flash is another component. It's a way for your browser to do really fancy stuff, like show YouTube videos or to actually run games in your browser. So you got, your web host, you got your domain name, you got server-side scripting, which is HTML, PHP, Flash, and then I'm just going to touch on another back-end component, which is your actual data, your database. Most websites today that do cool stuff have to go look up data. Like when you go shopping, it looks up the prices, the description of the items, or if you're running, some kind of cloud application where you work, you type in the person's name, it pulls up their contact info, their purchase history, stuff like that. Well, this is all data that resides in a database. Very often, that database is on the same physical server as your web host, but it doesn't have to be. And in some fancy highfalutin enterprise cloud apps, the database server may be on the other side of the country from the web host server. So that's another very important component, is the database. And I love databases. It's kind of my, forte or whatever. So even though I'm not, a big Oracle guy, hardcore like that, but I like MySQL for a database server. Again, it's communal, it's open source, it's free. The big thing about these open source community stuff, they're free. You could set up a whole web server. Well, I can't say that. You have to buy the actual computer, the hardware. If you have a computer hardware and an internet connection, you could set up the web hosting software, the database software, and some little extras, all for free with open source stuff. MySQL is one on the database end. There are other free database servers, PostgreSQL, and there's some new ones coming out, MariaDB, I think. But then there's the Microsoft SQL Server. They actually make a free version. See, I'm just rambling here. If you guys are losing interest, just tune on out, because I ain't going much further than this. And basically, there it is, anatomy of a website. Did you get something out of that? If you did, you're one sharp cookie. All right, see you tomorrow.